So yeah, Monerokon happened about a week ago, and it was fantastic. The talks that I've seen so far have been, yeah, they've been great. And everyone that went seemed to have a fantastic time. I got a few emails about it asking me if I had went. I did not go. But the plan is I'm going next year. I will be going to Monerokon and probably Monerotopia as well. That's the plan at least. So yeah, if you're a fan of the show, I should be there and we can hang out. And yeah, it'll be a good time. But yeah, day one of Monerokon, we have 6 videos here. And by the way, I got to give a shout out to the Monerokon team. They were very gracious in allowing me access to these videos. As of this point, they're not available to the public yet, but I'm kind of a celebrity, so I'm kidding. I did ask them though, and they provided a link just because they knew I was going to be doing kind of like a little summary of it. But yeah, they gave me the link to 6 different videos, or basically the 6 filmed presentations for day one, which we're going to talk about right now. To kick things off, we had Andres, who is the creator of Monerujo. It's a wallet I use for Android. He's a well-known figure in Monero. Super cool dude from Argentina. And you know what I really like about his presentation, and this kicked off the conference too. So I thought this was a great way to kick the conference off because it wasn't really a technical discussion, but more about the social part of Monero. And it was kind of like, how do we promote Monero without, being pretentious or, without like turning people off of Monero. And in a way, this was like a very good version of what a Moonboy is. Because like, there's nothing I disagree with in this talk necessarily. Because the underlying, I guess, purpose of this presentation is like, we want more people to use Monero, which, in a way, like a Moonboy would say that, like, oh, we want more people to buy Monero, which we kind of do, right? But he emphasizes like the actual like cypherpunk reasons we want this to happen. And I really like that. I really agree with a lot of that. So this is like good Moonboyism, I guess. It's Moonboyism that I agree with. And why is it Moonboyism? Because he starts right off the bat that price is important. And it is, in a lot of different ways. I mean, if we have the price going up, that means that our mining network becomes stronger, right? We want to have like a really strong mining network. But not only that, though, the more people who find out Monero, all else equal, will mean more people using Monero. And more people using Monero is a good thing, right? So there's like really important things for this. But Andres, he really makes it clear, though, that we're running out of time, as he puts it, where the on and off ramps may be becoming more difficult. I'm not sure if I agree with this necessarily, as if we're running out of time, but it is true that like we need to keep promoting Monero and getting people to use Monero so that it's too big to fail, right? Where we reach a point where even if it's blocked off of everything, people are still going to want to use it. I would argue we're already there, but it never hurts to promote it more. And I think that's really what Andres is saying, where he wants more people to use it, right? Now, he talks about how Monero is cool. And I would say the one thing that he does miss here is the reason that Monero is so cool, and that's darknet markets. This is really like, it's the clout, right? And darknet market maximalism, when I talk about this, we're in the cloud building stage. And darknet markets is that cloud. Like when people are talking about cryptocurrency, like it's like, okay, number go up, BS. Like, okay, yeah, that's cool. You think the world's going to run the blockchain in the future, whatever. But then you talk about, people buying drugs on the internet, and it's like, oh, okay, shit, yeah, that's true, right? It's like this respect, this actual like implied respect that people have. And I compare it in darknet market maximalism to Tony Soprano walking into a restaurant. It's that type of like, yeah, well, cryptocurrency might be scamish, but damn, like people are like buying and selling very illegal things on the internet with it. Like those guys are hardcore, right? And that type of like, respect that people have for Monero is very powerful. And I think that the cool factor of Monero is entirely derived from that. And like out of the darknet usage of it is really the usage that we see all over the internet, where it's like, if people are using it to buy drugs on the internet, that means it must be pretty strong. It's such a strong propaganda tool. So I think Andres, he probably just avoided talking about this. But yeah, this is the one thing I would say, like, he probably missed mentioning. But yeah, he talks about Monero being cool, and this is how you get people to use Monero. And I totally agree. We don't have to beg people, right? We don't have to really beg people to use Monero. You want to use Monero because, cool people are using Monero. And right, we've seen this too with like a lot of the popular tech influencers like Luke Smith, Mental Outlaw. They use Monero. Why? Because they're cool. And there you go. That's all you need as an endorsement, right? Cryptocurrency is just so uncool and like so cringy for a lot of people that overcoming that hurdle is quite difficult. And so I can actually speak from my personal experience that part of the reason why I, became, attracted to Monero initially was because of like how nerdy it was and like how it did not hold your hand. It was like all through like the terminal, and that turns a lot of people off. Like I'm an outlier in this respect, but that type of like hardcore, like cypherpunk kind of aesthetic that it had, that's what drew me into the project in the early days. Now, when it comes to the mainstream, I do think that there is a side of the mainstream where it's just like, because there is that like hardcore, philosophy behind the project, it actually makes it better, even though it turns them off. It's kind of a paradox, but like by the project and the philosophy of the project being so hardcore, it actually just gives it, again, that clout, that respect, right? And that makes it just all the more powerful, and it makes it all the more enticing for people who want to join a project that actually means something, that isn't just LARPing, right? It's doing the work. Another thing he says is half the challenge of convincing people about cryptocurrency is that fiat is shit. And this is totally true, because like, especially if you're in the United States, right? How can you have to convince somebody that using cryptocurrency is better than just using Venmo? And I brought this up multiple times on this channel. I brought this up in interviews. Like, most normies they're just going to use Venmo. Like, to them, that is peer-to-peer cash, or they're going to use Cash App or whatever. Like, you have to convince them that Monero is better than that. And the things that Monero has, it's not as interesting to them. So this is a battle that is very difficult, at least in the West. Now, Andres, he's from Argentina. Argentina has dealt with so much inflation issues, and a lot of South American countries have. And, I think that this is really where we should be looking at for early adoption for cryptocurrency, because like, these people, they want an alternative. They do not want to use fiat anymore. I mean, they're fine with using dollars, but like, they want alternatives. So it's cool to have that that mindset of like looking from the perspective of like other countries, right? Because in their case, they actually are really like they're desperate for something new, right? At least in some cases, like where you're looking at rising prices every week. Yeah, you're going to really want an alternative that's actually stable. And, I don't know, crypto's not really stable yet, but we're getting there. And, having, things like stable coins, it's going to become very, very popular. It already is, but it's going to become even more popular over time, because they're going to want something that just represents something that is stable. But yeah, in the West, I mean, it's just so hard to convince somebody who like, who uses like Venmo, like, hey, use Monero instead. And they're just going to be like, why? And you have to overcome that hump. And how do you overcome that? Well, again, just be cool. So this is kind of the whole point of the presentation, is like, you just have to be a cool person, and that's gonna like slowly bring in other people, and also kind of just do your thing, but also, don't feel embarrassed or shy to, reach out to somebody who's like interested, and like kind of tell somebody like, to check out Monero or whatever. Like by me having this channel, I am getting many people into Monero. It's crazy. Like I get emails all the time, like, "Oh, I love your series." I've learned so much, and that makes me feel really happy. And the thing is, it kind of blows my mind thinking about this. By me making this channel, I'm like, having all these new people get into Monero through me, and then they're gonna have all these new people get into Monero through them. You know what I mean? It like flows down like a tree, and that's crazy. It's kind of mind blowing. Like I don't know. Like 20 years from now, I may be responsible for like millions of Monero users. So like having that mindset where you're just kind of like, thinking positively, but not being like an obnoxious maximalist, and finding that and towing that line, it's really crucial for the long-term success of a project. So anyway, yeah, that was a really great talk. He goes into a lot of other things as well about being cool and stuff. So yeah, check that out for sure. We then had Dr. Sarang. He was a Monero Research Lab member for a while. He went to Firo, and now he's with Alpin, I think. It's a Lightning Network Bitcoin thing, I believe. I actually listened to an interview with him like 3 months ago, I think. 3-4 months ago. Yeah, I mean, he's doing his own thing. We love Sarang. Actually, a little story about Sarang that I don't think anyone knows about. But I went to Monerotopia in 2022 in Miami. And it was the first year, so it was a little unorganized, It was a lot of fun, but it definitely like we were winging it, right? And so yeah, there was like a lot of like audio issues, like technical issues, and Sarang was like working his butt off helping people or helping Doug in like the event like happen. And if it wasn't for Sarang, I don't know if the event would have happened. Like he was like doing all this like technical work and helping out. And like, I don't think he was hired. Like he was just doing that to help out. So he's like a really, really good dude. Seems like the nicest guy. But like, I noticed that. I'm not sure if anyone else noticed that, but I thought that was really cool because, dealing with technical issues is so frustrating. And it seemed like he took time out of his day to help people. So that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, his talks are always really easy. He's actually a very good presenter, and that he dumbs it down. So he doesn't really like go over the math, but he also like is good at giving metaphors and things that you can actually latch onto. Of course, if you've watched Breaking Monero, he's in I think pretty much every episode. He does a really good job of breaking down concepts just so you can understand it, right? And so anyway, his talk is all about coin ownership. And he compares the different types of ways you can prove coin ownership. So he talks about Monero and ring signatures and the pros and cons of it. And I mean, we know this at this point, the cons of ring signatures, why we want to move to something else, right? But he talks about like it's bad for scaling, it's linear. The math is really straightforward, but like it's not ideal, right? And also, as we know from a privacy perspective, it also isn't ideal as well. So then he talks about Firo, which uses I wrote this down, Grothel. I can't pronounce the name of the proof. Also, my handwriting sucks. But anyway, he has a different type of protocol that he uses. He calls it like a bucket structure as opposed to a ring signature. And I honestly don't really remember how it works exactly. It's just it's a better version of ring signatures. And I guess Seraphis, which was the original plan for Monero, it was going to be of this type where the scaling is better, and it's like it's faster, it's easier to prove, so you can have like larger sizes of anonymity sets. But it's not like to the size of what we're getting with full chain membership proofs. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, then he talks about Merkle trees, which is what Zcash uses and what full chain membership proofs uses. And the gist here is that you get a representation of each coin that shows information for the entire set. And you have proof of ownership without providing a large amount of information. So basically, you can prove something without showing everything. Kind of, I guess this would be a zero knowledge proof, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the technical term for that, but that's essentially what it is. And because of that, you can have very large anonymity sets. You can have faster verification times depending on things. But yeah, there's a lot more math involved, but it's much better at scaling. And yeah, as we've seen with full chain membership proofs, the anonymity sets are now in the hundreds of millions, right? So it's much, much, much bigger. Now, when it comes to the, he says proving systems are different between full chain membership proofs and Zcash. I forget if he like goes into, I don't think he went into detail on this because it starts to get like very technical. So he didn't do that. And there's also, there's a lot more math involved here, which thankfully the presentation did not do. So I wouldn't have to embarrass myself trying to like make sense of these formulas. But he did answer a question about quantum, where he basically said that quantum can break things and that it's a very complicated subject. So I guess he didn't really answer it. He was just like, this is a whole nother talk basically. But yeah, basically that was Sarang's talk. More on the technical side. If you're interested in like a good overview of like the different systems, check that one out. So then we heard from Jeffro, who was breaking down SPVs, which are simplified payment verifications. So basically with this, like when you run Monero, right, you have to download the entire node or the entire blockchain for if you're running a node. And that's just, it's a lot, right? You're downloading every single transaction ever. It's just a lot of information. But there's these things called SPVs where basically you're downloading only the block headers. And the idea here is that the block headers will have a hashed version of the entire block. And it essentially proves everything it essentially proves everything inside of the block. So it's a way to like have a much lighter version of a node, essentially. So back to full chain membership proofs, obviously we have this idea where we are going to have a way to prove the ownership of a coin out of a huge anonymity set. And it does this with these things called Merkle trees. This is like super hard to describe. Like you have to kind of look at a graph of it with like, it's like a diagram of a tree with flowing down and there's like roots and stuff. Does this make any sense? I don't know. But all you need to know though is basically it creates a path to the transaction output that you are using. Okay. But the problem is if you create that transaction path, it is bad for privacy, right? Because if you're like using a node and you're like, I want to send this output, they're going to know which output you're sending because you're pointing to that direct output on the blockchain and it's showing the entire root of the transaction of all the set of outputs, right? If you're pointing to that transaction, it's going to know which transaction output you're spending, right? So basically, to get around this problem, there's this thing called heliosaline, where basically it proves elements without proving elements. And there's like a whole diagram with that. You could check out the presentation. But basically, it's a way that we can prove the transaction output without saying the information. So I think this would be a zero knowledge proof, right? I think it's the same thing. Whatever. But this is like one of the ways that they're getting around this problem. And so anyway, that is Jeffro's talk on SPVs. It does seem like there's going to be a lot more potential going forward for this type of technology to develop. So pretty cool things. So next up, we had String Handler talking about Tari and P2 Pool and merge mining. So basically, Tari is merge mined with Monero. And the way merge mining works is you have like a parent mining chain, which is Monero, and you also have Tari. And basically, they're just mining both at the same time. And if they solve a Monero block, they include the Tari block information in the Monero block. And it's basically it's a way to improve the amount of people who are going to be mining Tari. It increases the amount of people that are mining Monero. It essentially strengthens both of them. And you can look into the technical stuff if you're interested in how merge mining works. Honestly, I'm having a difficult time trying to explain it. I've already re-recorded this like 3 times, and I'm like, screw it. I'm terrible at explaining merge mining, I guess. But basically, the way Tari is set up is they're mining different protocols at the same time. So they're merge mining with RandomX. They're also mining SHA-3X, which is an ASIC protocol, and they are also mining a GPU algorithm as well. And the reason they're doing that is because of what's called a zero cost attack, which I was never aware of. But basically, by having multiple algorithms, you prevent somebody who's like just like a really big centralized miner from just taking over a blockchain, right? Because like, for example, like let's say if there was like this massive mining pool for Monero, and they were merge mining Tari, well, they would just take all of Tari as well because they're the dominant chain on Monero. Monero is bigger than Tari, right? So by having multiple mining algorithms, you prevent that from happening because they're not going to be dominating the SHA-3 algorithm. At least that's how I understand it. So anyway, the talk also goes over the pros and cons of pool mining versus P2 pool and things like that. So interesting if you like mining. Check this one out. So next up, we have Justin Ehrenhofer, who talked about Magic, which is basically a public charity whose mission includes the maintenance of public blockchain infrastructure. So really the 2 main projects they're working on is Monero and Sarai. Actually, they're doing a lot of work with that. And really, the purpose of Magic is to kind of act as like a coordinator between, these projects and auditors and research companies. So, they're picking different vendors, they're picking different auditors, they're negotiating so they can, Magic can help save Monero money by doing this. They're operating with dollars as well, so it makes things easier. And with full chain membership proofs, as we've discussed on this program, the divisors is kind of like the big thing. A lot of work has gone into this. Divisors basically make full chain membership proofs 10 times faster to verify. So we really want these to work. And right now, the Cypher Stack audit is being completed. And once that's completed, it's going to be audited by another company. And once that's done, I think pretty much everything is audited at that point. There is some other stuff they mentioned, including the completion of the elliptic curve library. So that's being worked on as well. That should be done pretty soon. And, really then full chain membership proofs is just going to be like testing it and actually implementing it. In actual fact, we could have full chain membership proofs right now. They're just not audited. So we could just publish it right now. And if it's broken, then, well, whatever. But this is why we do the auditing, to prevent like a problem like that from happening. He also talked about Sarai, which had a peer review done by Trail of Bits, which was about the Ethereum smart contract stuff going on there. They have another one that's going to audit how their keys are generated. Another thing Magic is doing is RPC fuzzing. Basically, that's like a way to like stress test like RPC protocols. So it's just a really good way to like harden infrastructure, essentially. And the other thing I mentioned was a new Monero Explorer API written in Rust, which I didn't even know about. So I guess that's another thing to look forward to. And the last talk, Ospeed, right? The one I did. So Ospeed, awesome. Definitely check it out if you're interested in learning about how ring signatures need to be improved. This is all about the decoy selection algorithm of Monero, and it's unfortunately kind of broken. broken might not be the right word for it, but it's not as good as it could be, is probably a better way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people look at this and, they say that ring signatures are useless. I disagree. Ring signatures still work really well. And honestly, a lot of the theories of this, completely breaking Monero, I think are exaggerated, mostly because it's hard to prove this in a court of law, I think, which is why we haven't seen any poison outputs used in any criminal complaints. I don't know how well this would hold up in court, to be honest. But it's definitely not ideal. And as we've seen with Ospeed, it can be improved with the decoy selection algorithm that Rucknium proposes. Not that it matters, because we're going to switch over to a full chain membership proofs. But this is a good summary of everything that went down with that. And I'm really happy I was able to get the chance to do the talk. And yeah, that's pretty much that. So definitely check that one out if you're interested. And Ospeed. And that about summarizes it. Day one of Monerokon was pretty awesome. And we're going to have day 2 next week. So stay tuned for that.